everyone. I'm Kasturi. I'm part of technology strategy and advisory practice in Accenture India. Today, we will be touching upon a very important and pertinent topic, taking the leap with tech-driven transformations. The pandemic has accelerated the adoption of technology, be it amongst consumers or organizations. What could be a better example that today I'm connecting with my colleagues virtually to bring about this panel discussion to you when I have not met them in person for last 18 months. Today, I have this great opportunity to interact with two of the senior leaders, Neeraj and Sumreni, and one of my colleagues, Poornima, as we go about discussing the topics. But first, let's start with the introductions. Neeraj, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kasturi. Hi, folks. I'm Neeraj Arora. I'm a managing director in Accenture's strategy practice. I work in the space of technology advisory. Have been with the firm for over 10 years, based out of Bangalore. Lately, I've been working quite a bit in the transformation agenda, be it cloud transformation or data transformation. I work in the business case and the operating model side. Married, have a daughter who's 10 years old, sports enthusiast, like to travel and like to be outdoors.
Thank you, Neeraj, for your introduction. Sumreni, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Kasturi, thanks for that. So my name is Sumreni, and I'm a senior manager with the tech strategy and advisory practice. I've been with this practice for about 8 years, but I have about 12 to 14 years of experience. I kind of lose track of the count in tech strategy. So I've worked across multiple transformation engagements as well, very much closer to the workforce transformation and then how it gets impacted by technology changes. A lot of the technology landscape transformations, so like Neeraj said, on cloud, cost optimization of investing in technology, and then finally on the cutting edge skills that are required these days when you're working across business and technology, which is so important these days. I'm based out of Mumbai. Lived here most of my life. I live here with my husband and my 4-year-old son, who is very, in our faces and entertaining these days, given that we're all stuck at home. But yeah, it's been fun and look forward to the chat today.
Thank you, Sumreni. Poornima, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kasturi. Hi, everyone. I'm Poornima Asija. I myself, let me give you a bit about my journey. So I started with my engineering in electronics and communication. From there, I chose to work with Ericsson, primarily because of my interest in the telecom space. After an eventful 2 years, I decided to pursue my MBA in telecom. From there, I moved on to do my internship at EY. And then the next big opportunity in life was Accenture Strategy and Consulting. It's been 3 years since, haven't looked back. I always knew that I'm a techie at heart, so I knew I wanted to stick to technology, and consulting obviously sounds cool, right? So there I was. 3 years since, I've been promoted from an analyst to a consultant. Within the first year, I got an opportunity to visit Japan. So for all the travel buffs out there, Japan is a must place for you to explore. So it's been a really amazing journey with Accenture, and looking forward to more. Thank you.
That was really fantastic, Poornima. So thank you, Neeraj, Sumreni, and Poornima for giving your introductions. Neeraj, my first question to you is that the new reality is a mix of both opportunities and uncertainties. What are the key technology trends to watch out for in the market?
A lot of CEOs have talked about that they brought digital transformation to their organization, or the chief digital officer talks about bringing the digital transformation to the organization. But it's the COVID which has really brought in the digital transformation to the organization or to the industry. On the serious note, to tackle this, every leader has to be a technology leader. Digital transformation is kind of is the most important agenda in any organization right now. Now, coming to technology part of it, what are the key trends? What we are seeing? We recently, in fact, conducted a survey with the CIOs and the CTOs and the C-suite. And if I kind of give you some of the technologies where they are investing heavily, cloud is one where I think about 80% CEOs or CIOs came back saying that they are investing quite a bit in cloud. How can they improve their current application landscape or infrastructure and bring it on cloud? IoT is another space which is kind of getting a lot of traction given the wearable devices or sensors on an engine or in a machine kind of a thing, right? So a lot of investment is happening on the IoT side as well. Given that digital transformation touches on the wider ecosystem where you're sharing the data with multiple partners, data security is another area where investment is happening quite a bit. So these are the current key investments in the technology space which are happening. But the CIOs and the CEOs and the C-suite is also gearing towards the next gig, if you will, right? And they have started implementing a lot of agile ways of working, which means that while they are investing in these technologies quite heavily, they are also creating pilots and proof of concepts using some of the newer technologies, whether it is quantum computing or it is AR, VR, or for that matter, it is on RPA, right? How can we use IT, OT coming together? So they are piloting quite a bit on these technologies as well to be ready for the future. So these are some of the technologies, Kasturi, where CIOs and the CEOs are investing at the moment.
Thank you, Neeraj. That was very insightful. Sumreni, would you like to add on that?
Sure, thanks, Kasturi. So just picking up where Neeraj left off as well, I completely agree that I think we're seeing a lot of the accountability sort of shared between the CIO and the CEO. So early on, when I had started my career about 14 or so years ago, it was business kind of pushing IT requirements to IT and then saying, okay, thank you, get this to us in whatever 6 to 12 months, right? And then they would see it just 6 to 12 months later. That is certainly not the case now. Every client I've worked with in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, if business is not along with IT, that project is not as successful, and you can see it while you're implementing it, right? While you're working with the client through it. And as Neeraj said, COVID has kind of pushed us into a different way of working altogether, not just remotely, but like any crack that was in your IT landscape, in your organization, any gaps that were between business and IT, all of those just sort of exploded open in the last 2 years. And what we're seeing is a lot of CEOs being more accountable, held more accountable for IT decisions. They are very much more bought in to the importance of IT and how it's actually, going to run the business in the future. So one big trend and change that I've seen is how much business is involved in these decisions. I think the second change that I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years is moving away from technology as a buzzword. So we used to hear a lot, let's invest in AI, let's invest in cloud, let's invest in this, let's invest in that. But what does that actually mean for a business holistically? And I've seen that a lot of the clients I've worked with that are thinking of it holistically. Like if I implement or if I undertake a cloud transformation, how much is it going to cost me? Where is this money going to come from? Where am I overspending? How is this change going to impact my organization? What kind of skills will I require to run this in the future? How do I scale? It's when they look at things holistically, is that their decision making becomes better, the IT works better for them. And again, a lot of the larger, more forward thinking clients that we're working with are asking us these questions, which is making our role, a lot more interesting, if you ask me personally. And then finally, if I was to add a third trend I'm seeing a lot, it's actually the sense of responsibility or purpose from a company. So, and I think as a consumer and as an employee of a very large established corporate, there's a lot of pride when you work for a company that is responsible, that takes, topics like sustainability very seriously, diversity very seriously. And I've been in situations where clients are like-minded like that, and it's a game changer because that what they're doing, the products they're building, the kind of technology they're investing in is well thought out. It is something that is right for the environment, for people, for all I guess ranges of people, if you will.
Poornima, I'll move over to you. Today, we are experiencing something which is called as a tech clash, a collision between the need for personalization and digital experiences by the end customers versus the old ways of working, which is still in place in some of the organizations. What are your thoughts around this?
Um, right. Thanks, Kasturi. So definitely, I think you put it right. So there is the component of digital experience and there's personalization, right? So I would say while the digital experience is growing, personalization is becoming the key here, right? Customer expectations are on the rise, definitely. What so I myself I'm a consumer of digital technology these days, right? So I'll give you examples from my own life. Uh, we as consumers are moving towards expectations which are smarter and faster, right? So we're expecting our technologies to be smarter and faster. How? So, for example, YouTube and Netflix consumers, like myself, we cannot wait for more than 2 seconds for a video to buffer, right? That is the kind of expectation that we have from our technology these days. Secondly, so for example, I myself prefer one music application more over the other one. Like, for example, let's say I prefer YouTube over Ghana, just simply because one's recommendation engine is better than the other. Now, what does that mean? Unconsciously, I'm actually expecting my application to know what kind of music taste I have or what kind of a mood I am in, right? So that there itself is a lot of personalization, right? I've actually seen Gen Z and millennials use Instagram ads. I've seen them use Google's facial recognition features, all to save time, right? So these are pretty big examples of how we are moving towards more and more smarter and faster technologies, which is why I think 5G and AI and edge computing are playing a much larger role in the background, right? And what does this mean for our companies? I mean, they say know your audience, right? Companies for companies these days, I would say they need to know their consumers, but even better than the consumers know themselves. Now it's not just about understanding the consumer personas or their needs, but using that data to predict what they might need in the future. So it's not just about giving them what they need, but identifying that gap. What is it that they also don't know they need or want, and actually offering them that, right? So that is, I mean, a huge shift that I've seen recently. I mean, over the last few years, that digital experience with personalization. That's the new mantra. Yeah.
Thank you, Poornima. Neeraj, would you like to add that how are organizations trying to deal with this collision?
Yeah, I think Purnima is bang on, right? It's about hyper personalization these days, and I mean, if I tell you that the companies are not selling the products or the services anymore, they are selling the experiences. It's all about how you follow, how you bring the wider ecosystem together.
Sumreni, over to you. The need for innovation is greater than ever. Can you share some examples of where you have been trying to help clients adopt to this change?
Sure, Kasturi. I think innovation has become a very big focus area for all the clients that we work with, but it means different things for different clients. So, for example, a lot of the clients that I work with, especially now in the COVID situation where things have become so virtual, they're realizing the access that they have to skills and the type of people globally. One form that I think clients are taking is to tap onto really skilled technologists worldwide. So they're not just focused on working with people that are within their ecosystem headquarters and things like that. They're actually looking to build up focused innovation centers or pilot programs, or focused on things like more cutting edge data analytics, AI centers where there is skill availability of these so-called innovation type skills. So I think that's one thing that we're seeing quite a lot. There's also, like Neeraj was mentioning in one of the previous questions, that a lot of clients are piloting things. There's no time really to do long drawn implementations and get things to perfection these days, especially in terms of technology, because things change so fast. So a lot of clients come to us and say, what can you show us in 4 weeks? What can you show us in 6 weeks? And it sounds so overwhelming initially, but really when you look at it and you break it up for the client, it's doable, and then it helps them consume and innovate more as well, because we keep improving on it.
Thank you, Sumreni. Neeraj, would you like to add on that? What are the different innovative business propositions that some of the clients are adopting?
Yeah, let me do that. While innovation is a great word, right? But I guess it is abused a lot of times as well. And I mean, it's all about the culture, if you ask me. To get that kind of a culture in the organization is the most important thing. One can talk about disruptive ideas. One can talk about some of the continuous innovation. But until unless the entire organization is involved in that agenda, it's not easy to kind of bring in the innovation in the organization. It doesn't sit in the IT, it doesn't sit in a specific business function. It has to be a combined effort which should come together.
The COVID-19 pandemic has forced a lot of organizations to work together and collaborate more. This has led to a situation where there is ecosystem-wide innovations happening. Can you share some examples of clients where such ecosystem-wide innovation has got adopted?
Absolutely, Kasturi. Yes, I have actually personally started seeing that. What I'm seeing is that clients are moving more towards open architectures and open standards, right? So that's a huge testimony in itself that they're actually starting to believe in ecosystem-wide innovation, right? So, as an example, I was working with one of the Japanese clients. It's a new entrant in the telco space, and even though it's a new entrant, it's actually leaving no stone unturned to push the open technologies to the other players as well, because not just does it promote the better interoperability, but it also promotes faster ecosystem wide innovation, right? Because at the end of the day, even they have realized that they cannot achieve everything in silos, and there is no point of achieving everything in silos anymore, is what I feel, right? Because at the end of the day, if your industry and if your entire ecosystem is not with you, you're not going to be able to do justice to the achievements, right? So let me give an example here. If you're a telecom operator and you want to implement Open RAN, right? You cannot, I mean, Open RAN is all about having multiple vendors involved in your RAN, right? So you cannot implement Open RAN unless your vendors are supporting it, right? Unless your core network vendors are supporting the technology, the equipment, unless you have RAN vendors who have that kind of an equipment, right? So it is more about an ecosystem innovation now, right? It's no more about achieving anything in silos. What I feel is what I've even seen, it's more about handling the interdependencies within between multiple vendors within the ecosystem and making the best use of it.
Thank you, Poornima. Sumreni, would you like to add to that?
Sure, sure. So I think, I mean, my current client project is actually really representative of what you just said. And incidentally, it's something that they started, I think, preemptively just before COVID shut us down. But one of the things that this current client is doing is centralizing a lot of their technology operations. So their entire technology operating model is actually moving to only 2 or 3 countries. But what they're doing really well is enabling those 2 or 3 countries to support multiple other countries for them. And that in itself, I think, is such a huge organizational change, but really the way things are going to go, right? Because I, for example, am working with CIOs of this client in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, the headquarters in Germany, the tech hubs, if you will, in India, Spain, Brazil, Budapest. So, and I can keep going. Like these are, I'm not making this up. This is seriously my current situation where we are as a team of, 8 or 10 people navigating this organization through virtually through actually. We have never met the clients in person and probably won't, really speaking, given the situation, right? But they are moving, we are moving, and everyone has accepted that we can get things done effectively, we can get things done remotely, and the drive towards centralizing this technology is the right thing to do. And it also feeds back to some of the things that Neeraj was saying earlier, that in order to enable your organization to move forward, you have to become more efficient. You have to save cost. You have to streamline operations, and that will eventually feed into innovating. And that's something that my client is trying to do. Things were quite ad hoc before, like Australia had its own set of ways of doing IT. UK had its own set of applications and IT. And here they've really found millions and millions of savings just by undergoing this transformation over 1 or 2 years. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this leveraging of talent across the globe, less hesitancy, if you will, in leveraging the type of talent that exists. And really kind of streamlining and centralizing whatever can be done in an organization more and more as these barriers of travel sort of gray out more than they used to be.
Moving on, Neeraj, the question to you is that today the experience is multi-experience. It comprises of customer experience, vendor experience, employee experience. How has Accenture organized itself to deliver customer value in such changing times?
Yeah, I mean, very, very important question, right? How do you tackle all this, and how do you sort of, go to your clients and advise them on it? So I would say there are multiple dimensions to it. Uh, Let me start with the external dimension, which is clients, our clients itself, right? Um Gone are the days when, as an advisor, you would just go to the client and basis your experience, you talk about the solutions and advise them, right? I mean, every business is unique. Every business situation is unique in itself. Every challenge is different from other challenges which the company or the other companies are facing. So the approach which I have seen working out the best is the co-creation approach, where you work with the client, you work together and look at the challenges they are facing, talk about where they want to head. And it doesn't have to be the North Star, which is being defined by their industry only, right? You look at all around. Look at, even if you are a retailer, you look at what, say, for example, Netflix is doing, right? You look at what are some of the pure play e-commerce companies are doing. So you work together, you look at the challenges together, you come up with the solutions together, you work with their customers. It is very, very important to not just work with the client, but work with their customer, find out what they like, what they don't like, what would excite them when we talk about the changes. You work similarly with the vendors, right? So co-creation is very, very important when it comes to the external dimension. And I tell you, while we work in the advisory space, but we look at things much more holistically, we want it to be implemented as well. And I have seen the solutions which come out of these co-creation workshops or the methods are the easiest one to implement, because implementation is in itself is a big challenge. And then when they are involved in coming up with a solution, they will be that much more excited about implementing it as well. So that is the first part. The second part, or the second dimension, is the internal dimension, I would say. And Sumreni talked about it a little bit on it, collaboration. Now, Accenture, we look at things, like I said, much more holistically. What we have done, we have put together networks, right? Whether it is industry network or a function network, coming up from, say, supply chain, TNO, CFO practices, right? And then we have, of course, the CIO network where we deal in extensively. So we need to, when we are talking about the holistic approach, whether it is customer experience, employee experience, or the vendor experience, we need to bring all these networks together. And that is the beauty of Accenture, where we have these networks, and collaboration is the key, where we bring everyone together and we work with the network. One of my colleagues always talks about, network is your net worth, right? So that is really important. Now, let me add a third dimension. We're talking about technology and innovation and technologies like 5G, edge, artificial intelligence. Of course, we are talking about cloud and AR and VR. I can tell you one thing, basis my experience, people are the most important aspect of this overall transformation. You can bring in any technology, you can bring in any interventions, until unless your people are aligned to the change, it will never get implemented.
I'm sure that the audience would have very useful insights coming out from the industry trends and the kind of work that we do for our clients. But I'm sure that they are very interested to understand TSNA more closely? What are the different kinds of work we do? What are the different clients we work with? What are the different technology areas? And what does life and career look within this team? Neeraj, continuing on that, if I could say Accenture has been your cradle. You have been with the organization for 10 plus years. You started as a manager, had a very good and a quick ride up to managing director. Could you share some of the elements that one needs to adopt to have a very successful, at the same time satisfying career in Accenture?
Yeah, I mean, Accenture, and then I look at it from technology strategy and advisory side as well. So I'll combine it. See, we work in technology consulting space. Uh, that doesn't mean that we just talk about technology, right? You need this great architecture. You need microservices coming into the mix. You need to modernize your legacy systems and whatnot. You have to look at it from the business value point of view. I mean, whatever you do, there has to be a value associated with it. If you're not associating value to any initiative which you do, it doesn't move that much forward. So make sure that when you work with your clients or when you work internally as well, anything which you do, associate value to it. And more people will listen to you. Your path will be that much more clearer. You will be able to articulate why you want to run this initiative, why you want to kind of go on that path of solution. So absolutely, business value or the value associated with anything which you do is important. The second thing I would say that we work for our clients, right? Make sure that you are passionate about adding value to the client. I mean, they really need our help. That's why they are coming to us, right? And build a stronger relationship with them, right? It shouldn't be just transactional. You did an engagement and you're just out of it, right? Stay in touch with them, meet them if you can. Uh, Make sure that anything new which you are learning or hearing, which could be relevant for them, you go back to them and talk to them about it and see what proposition could be there. So client value, client relationship is the key. The third thing which I would say, and I spoke about network being the net worth. It is very, very important. I mean, I have seen more people being successful if they raise their hand and say, I need help, right? I can't do it on my own, right? I need to get more people involved in it. So make sure you ask for help. Make sure you're not a solo hero, right? It's always about a team game, right? So yeah, I mean, I think those are the three things which I would say: value, client relationships, and being passionate about adding value to the client, and network, right? Make sure you connect with as many people as you have to in order to solve the business problem. Client doesn't come to us saying that, what, I want this problem to be solved by technology, strategy, and advisory. They need to get that problem solved. And if you need to bring in 5 different teams to do that, do that.
Thank you, Neeraj. Poornima, you have been with the organization for 3 years. What do you think you need to do to get to the top quickly?
Uh, I think everything that Neeraj mentioned, definitely. So no, genuinely very, very valid points. I've actually seen the power of network here, right? So I definitely concur with that one, that you really need to understand the value and you really need to understand the network around you to be able to drive that value for the client, right? But having said that, I'll add on 2, 3 points which are, in my head also important. So from a when you're beginning the career here in this space, I feel, at least in my head, the three most important elements would be technology, strategy, and advisory, right? I mean, let me explain what I mean by this fairly obvious answer that I just gave. But what I mean is, so first most important element is that you have to be passionate about the technology, right? Because it's an ever changing world. Technology keeps on updating, upgrading all the time. So you really need to come from a place of passion to be able to cope up with that, right? You need to learn continuously, you need to read more, you need to understand not just like the technology trends in an industry, but also at a slightly deeper level, what that technology is all about, how can you implement it, what are the use cases. So all of those things you can only be able to achieve if you are actually passionate about some of the technologies, right? Like any area of your interest. So that is, of course, number one, right? Secondly, I would say thinking cap on, right? So if I can call it your strategic thinking cap on, very, very important, because the kind of strategy that you're building for your client is as important as the questions that are leading you to it, right? So for example, you need to understand the bigger picture of your client, right? What industry do they belong to? What geography do they belong to? What are their financial constraints, or what is the exact business problem they're trying to resolve, right? Let's say, how much legacy infrastructure do they have? Can we reutilize some of them to actually get financial benefits for them? So all of these you need to understand about the bigger picture so that you can actually build a good strategy for the client, right? So having that strategic thinking cap on is very, very important at all times, right? So that would be my second point. Thirdly, I would say, so I said advisory or consulting, right? So here again, a couple of points. It's more, so of course, you have your tech and strategy, right? You've done your homework. You know what you have to present to the client. But having done that, what is also very, very important when you're consulting someone is your client presence, right? So how confident are you while you're presenting the same to the client, right? So you need to believe in the strategy that you are presenting to the client so that the client actually trusts you more, right? So I personally believe that our client presence and our confidence goes a long way in getting the trust from the client as well.
Thank you, Neeraj, Sumreni, and Poornima, for sharing your personal journey and success stories with us here today. Back to our audiences, I hope you had a great time today and you were able to get a peek into how TSNA works, what are the different technologies that we work into, and what does career and life look here. Thank you all for your time today, and I hope to interact and engage with some of you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.